Hi, boys and girls. Remember yesterday we heard a story about the Tower of Babel, and I promised you that we were going to hear about a man named Abram. Well, that is exactly where we pick up today. The story is titled, God Calls Abram. Once again, the world was sinking in sin. People were fighting, cheating, lying, ignoring God, and hurting each other. It wasn't the way God wanted it to be. And people were building bigger and bigger cities. One of the biggest was a city called Isn't that a great name? Just 2 letters, U-R. If someone asked you where you lived and you said they'd say, no, really, where do you live? And you'd say And they'd say, stop making that noise, where do you live? That would be fun, but we don't have many cities with names like today. We have Chicago, Birmingham, London, and Dubai, Ashburn, Leesburg, Aldi. Oh, that one's kind of fun to say, but not as much as the fun as the name that sounds like your stomach growling. But back to our story. There was a man living in named Abram. You probably know of him as Abraham because later God changed his name. But before he was Abraham, he was Abram. Abram lived in with his family. And when I say family, I don't mean his mom and dad. I mean his mom, dad, sisters, brothers, uncles, aunts, cousins, second cousins, third cousins, and on and on. You see, in the ancient world, you were safer if you were in a big group. You were less likely to be robbed or attacked by another group of people if your group of people was really, really big. Going out on your own in the ancient world was very dangerous. And so people didn't like to go out on their own. They stuck with their families. And there's a picture of Abram. One day, God showed up and said, hey, Abram, I want you to go out on your own. At this point, Abram didn't know much about God. He didn't have the Bible like we do because it hadn't even been written yet. He couldn't go to church like we can because there weren't any churches yet either. But Abram trusted God. And when Abram said to God, so when God said to Abram, leave your family and follow me, do you know what Abram said? He said, okay. I know, crazy. Why did Abram trust God when he didn't even know him yet? Would you have trusted God if you were Abram? And there is Abram and his wife. That's not all God said to Abram, though. God told Abram that if he did what God asked, Abram wouldn't be alone. God would be with him. Not only that, but God would give him so many kids and grandkids and great-grandkids that Abram's family would become an entire nation. And they'd have their own land, and the whole world would be blessed, given an amazing gift through Abram and his kids. Wow. So Abram said, okay. He left his family, he left his country, he left everything behind and wandered off into the middle of nowhere, following a God he had just met. He took his wife with him. Her name was Sarai. You probably know her as Sarah because soon after God would change her name too. See, there are all the stars. That's what God said. I will give you as many family members as there are stars in the sky. They didn't take any children with them, though, because they didn't have any children. Sarai and Abram really wanted to have children, but God hadn't blessed them with any. Which might make you ask a very important question. How was Abram supposed to build a big, big family that could be a whole nation if he didn't have any children? Well, that's the story that we'll tell next. But first, let's go over some questions. God calls Abram, and this is found in Genesis 12 and 15. Our everyday truth that we can find from this story is that I will follow God because he leads me the right way. Abram didn't know where he was going. He had to follow God. Now, what 3 promises did God make to Abram? Well, God told him that he would never be alone and that he would give him many, 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 many kids, and that God would bless him. Those were the 3 promises that God told Abram. And what is one way you can follow God as Abram did, even as a kindergartner or an almost first grader? Well, you can follow God as Abram did by doing what you know is right. Abram knew that God's way was the right way, and that's what he decided to do. All right, boys and girls, we are going to close out this story with some prayer. Dear God, we want to follow you where you lead us every day. Please show us which way to go. Amen. Boys and girls, I can't wait to hear tomorrow what happens with Abram and Sarai. And I'm sure we'll get to see that their names get changed tomorrow too. Bye.